I am recording this for the archive because someone should, and because the men who were there with me are mostly ash now, or worse. My name is Corporal Aulus Vantor, 88th Calthan Rifles, and I want it on the record that I saw him. I saw Captain Titus come back. We were dying on Var Sorrin before he came. I want to be clear about that first because the songs they sing about it now make it sound clean. It was not clean. Nothing on that moon was clean. Var Sorrin was an ashen little rock, tithe world to a forge world 3 systems over. Good for nothing but the promethium under its crust, and the men it could bleed to defend that promethium. We'd been dug in for 6 weeks when the greenskins came down out of the black in ships shaped like flung hammers, and after that there was no more digging in. There was only holding, and then not holding, and then dying in the order our sergeants told us to. I was 19. I'd fired my laser gun at targets made of straw and never at anything that screamed back. That changed inside of a day. The orcs came at us the way they always do. Not like an army, more like weather. A green tide with teeth in it. My first kill was close enough that I felt its breath, hot and rotten, before Sergeant Corvo put a lass bolt through the thing's skull from behind me and told me to stop staring and start reloading. I did. I don't remember much else from that first hour except the smell, promethium smoke and blood, and the ozone stink of overcharged laser guns. And the weight of my power pack going from full to half in a span of minutes I couldn't account for. We held the trench line for 9 days. Command kept promising relief. Relief kept not coming. I should tell you about my squad, because they mattered more to me than any general order ever did. Corvo was our sergeant, a hard, grey little man from a hive world he never once talked about, who'd survived 2 prior campaigns and treated every new one like it was trying personally to kill him, which it generally was. He didn't believe in luck. He believed in cover, ammunition discipline, and keeping his people alive long enough to be useful again tomorrow. There was Ensa Dre, our best shot, who used to hum old work songs under her breath while she sighted a target, so quiet you'd only catch it if you were beside her. She'd grown up on an agri-world and said the las rifle wasn't so different from the harvesting scythes she'd swung as a girl. You just had to trust your hands and stop thinking about it. There was Pollux, a big, soft-spoken man who carried the squad's medikit and argued with Corvo about rationing bandages the way other men argue about rationing food. He actually believed, that the Emperor watched each of us individually, and he never once mocked me for asking him how that could be true with so many of us dying. He just said, "Someone has to watch. Might as well be him." There was Teo Ashkin, youngest after me, who'd lied about his age to enlist and was too proud to admit he regretted it. He and I split ration bars and complained about everything, because complaining was the only thing that was still ours. And there was Commissar Ray Ladan. Dan did not smile. I never once saw it. He walked the trench line with a bolt pistol on one hip and a chainsword on the other and a voice that could freeze water. And when Private Corin Ash broke on the 4th day, dropped his weapon, turned, ran, Dan shot him in the back of the skull without breaking stride, and then turned to the rest of us and said, "Discipline is not cruelty. Discipline is what keeps the rest of you breathing tomorrow." Nobody argued. Nobody dared. And some part of me, God Emperor forgive me, understood that he was right, even as I hated him for it. That was the philosophy Var Sorrin taught me, in the end. That the Guard does not ask you to be brave. It asks you to hold your position until you are dead or relieved, and it does not much care which. By the 9th day, we had lost 1/3 of the company. Ensa Dre had run out of the special long-last rounds she preferred and was making do with standard charge packs, cursing under her breath about it between shots. Pollux had used up most of the medikit's coagulant foam and had taken to tearing strips from dead men's flak cloaks for bandages instead. We were rationing power packs. 1 full charge, 1 half, keep the half for emergencies, don't waste a shot on anything past 30 meters unless Corvo said so. The orcs brought up something bigger on the 9th day. A walker, crude and enormous, cobbled together from scrap and spite, the kind of thing only orcs could build, and only orcs would trust to hold together. It came through the wire like the wire wasn't there. That's when he arrived. I didn't see the dropship. I only heard it, a shriek of engines through smoke too thick to see through. And then there was a shape coming down out of that smoke in blue and gold, taller than any man has a right to be, and he hit the ground running before his boots had finished landing. I want to describe him honestly, not the way the hymnals do it now. He was scarred. His armor, the ceramite plate of a space marine, an Astartes, was pitted and scorched in a dozen places, old damage layered under new. And there was a stillness to the way he moved that I've never seen in a living thing before or since. Like violence was simply a language his body already spoke fluently, and he was only now getting reacquainted with the accent. He didn't shout orders. He didn't need to. He put a bolt round through the orc walker's cockpit at a range I would have called suicidal for a laser gun, and the thing folded in on itself in a gout of promethium fire. And for 1 full second the entire trench line went silent, ours and theirs both, like even the orcs were startled. Sergeant Corvo, who did not impress easily, said one word. Titus. I hadn't known the name meant anything before that. I learned fast that it did. Whispers went down our line, faster than the Vox could carry them. A name from old campaign reports, a captain of the Ultramarines. Chapter thought lost, missing presumed dead for longer than I'd been alive, now standing in our mud putting bolt rounds through orc skulls like he'd never been anywhere else. I won't pretend I understood then what it meant for a space marine to fight beside mortal men. I understand it a little better now. To us, he was a weapon shaped like a man. To him, I think, though he never said so, not to the likes of me. We were the reason the weapon existed at all. He fought 2 days at Var Sorrin. In that time, I watched him do things that should not have been possible for flesh and ceramite. Pull a wounded trooper out from under a collapsing bunker one-handed while returning fire with the other. Stand in a breach alone against a boarding action that would have taken 20 of us to hold, and hold it. Go silent and motionless for entire minutes at a time, listening to the Vox, reading the battle the way Ensa read wind before a shot. But he was not a god, whatever the songs say now. On the 2nd day, an orc knob half again his size caught him with a crude power claw and put a gash through his side armor deep enough that I saw the wound beneath. And Titus went down to 1 knee in the mud like any man might, and for a moment, one terrible moment, I thought we would watch him die there in front of us the way we'd watched so many others die. He didn't. He got up. He finished the knob with his bare hands, which is a thing I still don't fully believe I saw. And then he kept fighting, bleeding the whole while, because that is apparently what an ultramarine does when there is still a line to hold. The supernatural horror came on the 2nd night, and I need to tell it plainly, because it's the part the songs leave out entirely, and I think that's a lie by omission. Somewhere in the orc advance, there had been cultists, human wretches who'd thrown in with the greenskins out of fear or madness or worse. And one of them, dying, screamed something in a language that hurt my ears to hear. Syllables that felt wrong in a way I can't explain except to say that the air went cold around them and the last lights flickered, though there was no reason for them to. Pollux, standing nearest, dropped to his knees clutching his skull and began weeping blood from his eyes. Dan shot the cultist before the sentence finished. It didn't matter. Whatever had been started was started. For 9 minutes, I counted them off my chrono afterward, because counting was the only thing keeping me sane. The trench around Pollux, filled with a smell like an abattoir and a sound like something enormous breathing just underneath the mud, and I saw Teo Ashkin's shadow move independent of his body. And I have never in my life wanted so badly to simply stop existing rather than witness 1 more second of it. Titus was there before I even understood he'd moved. He didn't pray over it the way Pollux would have. He didn't reason with it. He drove his combat blade into the ground at the exact center of whatever was happening and spoke words I didn't recognize, cold and flat and final. And the wrongness in the air simply stopped, like a Vox channel cutting to static. Pollux lived. He was never quite the same man after, quieter, prone to staring at nothing. But he lived, and he thanked the Emperor for it every day I knew him afterward. And I never had the heart to tell him I thought it was Titus he ought to be thanking. Because I don't think Titus would have wanted the thanks. We lost Ensign Dre on the 10th day to a stray round in the chaos of the final push, mid-hum, mid-shot, and I don't think she ever knew it was coming. We lost Teo Ashkin 2 days after that in the mopping up to a wound that Pollux's depleted medikit simply couldn't close in time. Dan survived Var Sorrin. Corvo survived it too, though he walked with a limp afterward that never fully healed and never once complained about it where I could hear. Relief came on the 12th day. Too late for the ones we'd lost, on time for the rest of us, which is, I think, the entire history of the Astra Militarum condensed into one sentence. Titus left the way he'd arrived, not with speeches, not with ceremony. I watched his dropship lift off through the smoke, and Corvo stood beside me and said the only eulogy any of us gave him. That's the thing about the lost ones. They come back when you need them to, and they leave before you can thank them properly, and somehow that's exactly right. News came a season later that a beloved sector Lord Marshal had fallen defending a Hive City 3 systems coreward, a woman named Sail Kestrian, who I'd never met, and who I wept for anyway. The way you weep for anyone who dies holding a line you know you'll have to hold again yourself someday. It fractured something in me hearing it. It made the whole galaxy feel thin and temporary, like all of us were just waiting our turn. It was Corvo who reframed it for me, in his flat gray way, sitting outside our billet cleaning a laser gun he didn't need to clean. He said, "You think we fight for worlds? We don't. Worlds fall, marshals fall, even Astartes bleed. You saw that yourself. We fight so that when it's someone else's turn to hold, there's still something left standing behind them to hold on to. That's the whole cause. Nothing grander than that, and nothing smaller. I have carried that with me for 30 years. I am a sergeant myself now, training boys and girls half my age who were not born on Calth and never will call it home. Off-world recruits, tithed from a dozen different soils, none of them mine. I don't teach them my homeworld songs anymore. I teach them what Var Sorrin taught me. Hold the line, ration your charge packs, trust the soldier next to you, and if a space marine ever drops out of the smoke to fight beside you, consider yourself among the fortunate few, and don't waste the moment being afraid. Some of them ask if the stories about Titus are true. I tell them, I was there. I tell them what I saw, plainly, without the hymnal's polish, the scars, the blood in the mud, the moment he went down on one knee like any man. I tell them that's exactly why it mattered. A god couldn't have taught us anything. A man who fought like one, bled like one, and got back up anyway, that we could learn from. Tomorrow I ship out again. Older now than Corvo was when I met him, slower in the joints, keeping a limp of my own that I don't complain about either. There's a new front opening on a world I'd never heard of a year ago, and my new recruits are frightened in the particular quiet way that frightened soldiers get the night before their first real deployment. And I remember that quiet very well. I am not afraid, or if I am, it no longer feels like a thing worth mentioning. I go because Var Sorrin held, and because the line has to keep holding, and because somewhere out past the smoke there may be another lost hero waiting to come back exactly when he's needed and vanish again before we can thank him. That is enough reason. It has always been enough reason. Calth stands because we do not. I ship out at dawn.